So I want to start with. I've been here since I've been 5 years old legally. When I went to as a permanent resident, I joined the Marine Corps. Uh, when I Bush signed that law that if you went to war, you would become a citizen. In the middle, I remember probably about April 20th. I remember talking to my platoon sergeant to say, "Hey, my green card," because I had my green card on me because you always carried it. And I said, "Hey, it expired." And I remember him going, "Don't worry about it. They passed the law. You're good." That's all I remember. And so when I came back, my wife would always tell me like, "Hey, become a citizen." I said, "I don't need to." I should have done it, but I had that security. Like I'm a veteran, I don't need to. Becoming homeless, all that. I got in trouble with some drug addiction. I had one charge of drug addiction. The second charge is bogus, but that's beside the point. Uh, so I went to Mexico. I found out I had brothers and sisters for the first time. So I told my wife, "Hey, look, my green card, because I had lost my green card. It took me about 5 years to get my green card back in the mail. I hired an immigration lawyer. They had to find my paperwork. So when I get my green card in the mail, to me or to any immigrant, that means what? You're good to go." So I grab my green card. We fly to Guadalajara. We go to Michoacan. On my way back, I get stopped by Homeland Security, and they take me to the second inspection, and they bring up my arrest record, and they said you're no longer allowed to be in this country. And I'm like, "Excuse me?" They said you had full permission to stay in this country, and I'm saying this because I want veterans to understand this, not just veterans, but anybody who has a green card. Is They said that I could have lived the rest of my life in this country without a problem. But the moment that I stepped out of this country, I forfeited my green card and I was subject to reevaluating if they can wanted to let me in or not. So that's where I get arrested, get sent to uh, right there in Fort Worth, the immigration the center. And by the grace of God, on the seventh day, they released me. And it was crazy the way it happened because it came out in the news. There was about five, six different stories that were brought up. But I get the guy calls me up. He goes, "Can you provide your DD 214?" And I did. And as soon as I provided my DD 214, I got released. But a month later, I get a paperwork mailed to my house telling me that I'm on a 1 year humanitarian parole, that I must leave at the end of that year. So right now, that's where I'm at. My lawyers are fighting, that they're trying to take it to the DA and not go to court. Try to say, "Look, let go of this guy." I don't brag about the things I've done because all honor and glory goes to God, but they're trying to show that my character is no longer that of my only time I ever got in trouble in my life is 3 years of my life. That's it.
So, Julio, it's ironic that you mentioned that because Homeland Security has different divisions. You got Border Patrol, you got Customs and Borders, you have ICE, and then you have CIS, Citizens Immigration Service, right? Which are U.S. Citizens Immigration, which they are supposed to be able to build an alliance with the people that are here, especially the veterans that provide the DD 214s, because it's common sense, right? You're working for the federal government as a United States Marine. It's part of the federal agency. So the language that they bring out there is pretty stupid, right? But then again, it goes to show the political mindset that has changed because it's only common sense. And this is a waste of time, a waste of money, and is affecting your quality of life and not only your physical health, your emotional health, but your mental health because you're on a time clock, right? And how is it that Jeffrey and I have spoken, they let all these illegal aliens come in. And I say illegal because they cross the border, they get a phone, they get a debit card, they get a stipend, they get more money than you, me, and Jeffrey together. And then now they're fighting it because it's sanctuary. But here we are signing a blank check, right, for the government, blank check up until your life, and they don't understand that. So I'm lost for words on that as well.
One of the things that because when I first found about Julio's story, it made my blood boil because if the government can legally send you to warfare they have to understand that there's going to be repercussions. And I'm not just talking about loss of life, I'm talking about veterans that come back. A lot of them may not be sane. A lot of them may have some mental challenges, if you will, that they need to work through. And so, yes, we have the VA, but it sounds like the VA is not doing good and that much of a good job. And so people need to understand when you send someone to warfare overseas, there's gonna be challenges, and we need to find a way that to get those challenges fixed. America right now, there's a shortfall in military service. People are not signing up like they used to. And the Marine Corps doesn't have that problem. We are very good, like I said before, at recruitment. But some of the other services, they're struggling. And so if we don't take care of warriors like Julio here, then his son or a family member that you have who are getting information from our experiences, they may not want to join unless there's a draft or they make it mandatory, which I do think we should have a mandatory in the future mandate service, right? So we can teach more leadership to the youth. But at this point, they may not want to join because they say, well, Julio went through these challenges with the government, Hiram or Jeffrey. Why should I serve? And so, this is to all our leaders in the community, including our political leaders as well, is if you want people to start listening to you, you got to start solving some of these problems here. So Julio, take us through after that experience, because you missed, there's one part you mentioned, and I remember you mentioned it was a really great testimony, right? And I shared this with Hiram, your testimony as far as the prodigious son, right? You were detained for 6 days, but you were released on what? The 7th day.
The 7th.
So take us through that.
It was so a lot of people may not understand this part of this story, but I'm talking to 2 men who believe in God, and you guys are gonna really love this part. When I get arrested in the airport, for whatever reason, there was an anger but a calmness over me, mixed together. So I get arrested, they take all my things, they put my cell phone on the side, and there's another person who gets arrested. He's crying, and I tell the Homeland Security guy, I said, like, look, I'm a pastor. Is it okay if I pray for that gentleman? And he goes, yeah, go ahead, pray for him. So I pray for him, and the guy gives me a hug, and he calms down, and they're able to talk to him because they couldn't talk to him. And I sit down, and the Homeland Security guy is typing all this paperwork up, and he looks at me, he goes, grab your phone. And I'm like, okay, sir. He goes, go ahead and talk to your family while you're here. So I'm talking to my family. Another guy passes by crying. They can't stop him. And I look at him and goes, go ahead. I go pray for this person. And I'm so angry at God right now. Right? I'm angry at God. I'm like, God, I don't even want to pray for them. Look where you have me right now. So I get arrested. I get sent to the immigration center. And when we get there, all the people that get there, they're being rude. I'm just whatever. We get our clothes and everything, and the lady says something to me. She goes, you want to keep your wedding band on? And I said, yeah, if it's possible. She says, keep it on. And the other guy's like, why can't I keep my ring? In Spanish, yelling at him, cussing at him. And I'm like, oh man, relax, they're just doing their job. And they give us our clothes, and then she goes, come here, give me a second. She goes and she gives me an extra long sleeve shirt, 2 more sets of warm clothes, 3 pairs of socks. She goes, hey, here, I got some new slippers for you. And these guys are just mad. They're like, why? And I said, ma'am, you don't have to give me that. She goes, no, it's okay. I'm going to give it to you. So I'm seeing God's favor. Even though I'm angry at God, I'm seeing God's favor in this whole process. But I'm not saying thank you right now to God. I'm not. So we're all walking. It's 3 of us, and we're walking. And they sent these guys to the population. And they tell me, Torres, this way. And I'm walking. I'm like, where the heck are they taking me? They put me in solitary. When they put me in solitary, I'm like, what? Why am I in solitary? I'm not in no gang. I'm being nice. I started making all the extra clothes that they give me. This is the part you guys are going to love. This is when my wife says my life needs to be a movie or a series. I'm packing all the extra clothes into the pillow sheet that they gave me. And I go and I put it on the bed, and when I'm about to squeeze it to make it a little bit comfortable, guess what's written on the pillow sheet? I am. God's name, the I am, the great I am. And I remember saying, you got jokes, God? You talking to me while I'm in this situation? You know, and this is the thing. I think that once God revealed to me, when I got put in solitary confinement, uh, maybe 2 hours before I went to sleep, about 100 agents rushed in there with shields and guards and everything. And I'm like, what's going on? And the guard was so nice. I said, look, I'm claustrophobic. He goes, I'll leave the window open for you. So I'm sitting by the window, just right there, you know, getting fresh air, not room air. And all these agents come in, and there's a girl standing next to my door. What they're doing, they're getting all the Chinese immigrants out. And with the way they got them out with shields, weapons. You know, they open the door, they put this like insane asylum kind of, you know, jacket on the floor, and they tell them lay down. Some of the guys lay down, some of them didn't go easy. So they have all these ICE agents there with weapons, you know, with mask and everything. So I look at the hole and I say, ma'am. And she goes, yeah, what do you want? I said, I'm a veteran and I'm in here. And I remember her going, what? And she bent down and she says, give me your information. Now I see why everybody else went to population and why God sent me to be over there with in isolation, because I believe that it was the work of everybody else, but I also believe that it was that God sent me to that place for that person to stand there and go, give me your social security, give me your name, give me everything, you know, because the agent that called me said, hey, I heard that you are a veteran. So I'm guessing, you know, I'm praying however God worked that did. So from there, the next morning I get taken out of solitary and I get put in population, and I'm sitting on my bed angry at God. We've all been there. You know, when you're mad at your spouse, you don't want to say you're mad at them, you just don't want to talk to them. So I'm sitting there and there's a guy walking around saying in Spanish, is there any pastors here? For all the new guys, is there any pastors here? And I'm like, no. The guy walks up to me and goes, hey, by any chance, are you a pastor? And I said, why do you say that? We've been praying because we lost our pastor. We've been praying that God sends somebody in to teach us Bible studies. And I'm like, yeah, I am. That first night, we had over 25 people, 20-something people give their lives to the Lord. And I'm preaching, and everything I'm preaching, I'm angry in my spirit, not at God, but in my spirit, because I'm preaching and I'm like, oh my God, everything that I'm saying to these men is what I need to hear, Lord. Stop it. You know, God was talking to me in my situation. By the time I left, there was 58 people who gave their life to the Lord. But the funniest part is, the second night I was there, I woke up about 3 a.m. and I hear God's voice say, serve in here. And I'm like, I don't want to serve. And he kept saying, serve. So I get mad and I go and my bed is in front of the toilets, 18 toilets. So everybody's asleep. So I go grab the toilet brush and I said, fine, you want me to serve God? I'll serve. And I start just brushing all the toilets, cleaning the toilets. And I'm going to say, I'm mocking God in the sense of saying, fine, I'll serve. Is this serving enough for you? That brush slips and falls right in my mouth. And I said, I'll shut up, Lord. I'll shut up and serve. And it was crazy, the favor I had in there just for that week that I was in there. I told the guards, I said, hey, I'll translate for you if you need me to translate. You know, I'm a pastor. So every time somebody was crying a lot or anything, they're like, hey, can you come? And 7 days I didn't have extra food there, but the guards would always give me 2-3 extra plates. And I would be able to minister to people. Hey, you hungry? So I saw God's favor in the midst of all that. And this is the crazy part. I'm leaving. When I get asked to leave the facility, they tell me, get out. They didn't give me no paperwork. They just said, leave now. It was funny because they don't do that. They just told me to leave. I'm walking out, and as soon as I walk out of the facility on the highway, a friend of mine, I belong to an organization called Kingdom Music, and one of the ministers from Kingdom Music looks at me and turns around and goes, Julio, what are you doing? And he picked me up. So I didn't even have to walk nowhere. The Lord provided a ride as soon as I left the facility.